Hi, my dear listeners. This is Charu, and today I'm going to talk about the eclipse that's happening on 14th of December, which will have an impact on us for the next 6 months. First, I'd like to thank many of you who had written back to me, and I'm hoping to slowly and steadily get back to recording. So I hope you look forward to the readings that are about to come. And I wanted to thank you for your messages and for your patience. So let's dig in. We have a solar eclipse that's happening today on 14th of December, which will have an impact on us over the course of next 3 to 6 months. Solar eclipses usually bring very fated new beginnings. There is a karmic element to the new beginnings that are happening at this point in time, and they have the qualities of the zodiac sign in which this eclipse is happening. The eclipse is happening in the zodiac sign of Sagittarius. So the archetype of Sagittarius is very well embedded deep into these new starts. Sagittarius as an archetype is all about optimism. It's about motivation to do something, to have a higher purpose in life, to see the bigger picture and move towards that, have a hopeful future, ready to seek truth, adventure, purpose, experience that, move beyond us, beyond the mundane essentially. So the new beginnings that you might be venturing into or looking into or having a new start of feeling from inside, because a new moon or a solar eclipse is when we put the seeds of something. We don't know the full details of what's going to pan out, how it's going to pan out. The details are not filled in yet. And when Mercury, our mind, is still in the zodiac sign of Sagittarius, which believes in having faith that when you sow a seed, it will sprout, provided you give it the effort and the time, and you have a higher purpose to get through that. You sort of are in a position where you might even be okay to not know everything. And this new moon comes with faith, it comes with belief, it comes with compassion, it comes with the thought process to go beyond our current existence and do something that we have not done before. It's coming with South Node though. So there is an element of release. It's not coming without something that we have to give up to go to that. Something that is comfortable, that we have lived with, that we have existed with, possibly for the last 18, 19 years as our reality. As an individual, we are having to release on a mundane or a global on a global basis. You would find that beyond the last 18, 19 years, we have not seen in history the kind of year we had this year. Moving beyond the current cycle with Saturn and Pluto conjunction at the start of this year has sort of triggered off, and now with Saturn and Jupiter meeting each other on 21st of December, physically closest ever since 1600s. I mean, it's going to be a treat for astronomers to watch that happen, because they have not seen this kind of a close conjunction between these two planets, Saturn and Jupiter, since 1600. So it's a astronomer's delight to see that. But from individual perspective, this is crossing a threshold of a new physical existence. Saturn is about structure, Jupiter is about expansion. When they two meet together, a new cycle of our physical growth begins. The industries that do well, the kind of professions that do well, the way of operating in our day-to-day jobs, the way to be abundant, it changes. The very structure of our growth changes. And I spoke about this in February with you because I wanted you to start reskilling towards that direction, because North Node is right now in Gemini, and the road to success is to reskill at this time and look for a path beyond where you were before and release the old belief system. And this eclipse comes with South Node, which is all about releasing an old purpose of life and putting the seeds of a new higher purpose of your existence. We are a multi-dimensional being. We are not here to just do one thing in our life. We are here to do whatever we think can add value and purpose to our existence. So there will be choices that might have presented to you, because Sagittarius um, is a mutable sign. It is about choices, it's about options. And it's coming with a T square, which comes with a crossroad. It's like two planets are in opposition, and then there is a single midpoint where there is another planet in the middle of it. It's like a crossroad which is created and a decision is taken. And the apex of that T square is Neptune. Neptune as an archetype is not very clear when you think logically. It's not about logic. It's not about knowing everything. It's about, does that make you more than you were yesterday? Does that bring you closer to your reality versus world's reality? Does that bring you closer to who you were? Neptune strips off anything. Neptune is dissolves a lot of things. It's like a planet which is known to dissolve where it is. So if it is in our, for example, in our house of friendships, it might, if you look at it from a superficial way, it might just feel, in my physical reality, I seem to be losing quite a lot of friends. But Neptune dissolves what is not truly yours. So there is something which will be dissolved to some extent, because you yourself don't believe that that is you anymore. Because as an identity, who you are has shifted, so the physical reality needs to adjust to get there as well. And you would see that with this T square, a clear mental choice is presented to you, which involves you giving up an old mindset so you can move towards a new reality. And Mercury, the planet of communication, is conjunct this, is sitting with Sun and Moon at the point of this eclipse right now. And when Mercury it does this placement, the Mercury makes noise. There's a voice to be said. There's a communication. There is a enlightenment which comes with a clear communication, a communication in our head, in our mind. There's a messaging that comes. And at the same time, there's a messaging that comes to you that helps you realize your path to some extent. Because sometimes being too much of the mind stops us from listening to our spirit. And here you will find that conflicting energies playing out very clearly. And this eclipse brings about what I sometimes call as, it's like a cosmic leakage which happens, some sort of information which is divine in nature, which is enlightening in nature, which was not supposed to sort of go out to the people who exist in the world, but like a map is released to some extent, like an examinations paper is leaked or something is leaked. Like we see the negative manifestation of that in form of a confidential information being leaked. So it sort of is like a cosmic leakage which happens. Like we hear something, we know something, like a prophecy about our own individual situations, which we would normally not listen to because we'll be looking for logic. And sometimes when things stop making sense, that's when we see clearly what we were not seeing before. So there's a loss of logical communication, and that's when an aspect which is called Janakarka, which is like enlightenment indicator. There's an enlightenment which happens. And this happens because we stop looking for logical communication to some extent. And that's why in my note today I was mentioning to you that it's a time when we sort of have to shut down. So Gmail went down, YouTube went down. It's sort of like those systems need to go down for a bit. The noise needs to go down for a bit. And it's like a global meditation for a few seconds when all these things that we are so busy pursuing and going after just goes down for a second, so you could listen to yourself. So there's a loss of this logical communication. So the meaning of a past loss even can come to you. So meaning of what is the misstep between where you want to go and where you have come from. Where does that sit? T square of Neptune to the south node and north node, which will be activated all the way till January and February of 2020. That T square shows us that we have missed a step. And there's nothing there's no harm in that. It's sort of like we were so in a rush to get to the north node, the destiny, the purpose, the karma of this life. We want to go ahead and start fulfilling the purpose of this life, that we lost what we were supposed to take from the south node. So road to success, as I've been talking about, is to move from south node to north node. North node or Rahu is where we find success in this life, where we feel driven to, where we want to go. North node right now is in Gemini. Reskilling, moving to the current moment, acquiring new information, acquiring knowledge, being bombarded with a lot of new things. That is road to success right now. Reskilling yourself and moving forward instead of dwelling on the past belief system, which is south node, where we came from. But there is a part of that belief system, a faith, or knowing who you are and why you're doing this, like a purpose of all this hyperactivity. What is the anchor? That missed step is getting highlighted with this eclipse. And north node and south node, they are in opposition. They are opposite points to each other. And Neptune as a planet is sitting at 90 degrees to both of them, saying, I am not going to budge from here till you realize what you don't know, because you will not be satisfied moving to your destination without incorporating this part of it. It's like, I'll give you an example, and you can think of it in your current situation, how that holds. And I'm pretty sure it does, because I know this within me, that this is something that many of us are thinking about. North node in Gemini, I decided need to change the direction of what I'm doing. This is where I need to go. I need to learn 10 things for it, reskill this way, new jobs, new position, new something I need to apply. Past, I used to focus on this, now need to move from this to this. So we got to move from point A to B. We are very clear about that. Move from south node to north node right now. But I don't have a higher purpose for it. What is that achieving? How does that achieve my purpose of existence? What is the anchor for that? What is it doing it for somebody beyond me? There is a cause normally that a Sagittarius always fights for. The fire that Sagittarius have, they come from a meaning. They come from a need to seek universal truth. It comes from a need for adventure, the purpose, the experience to move beyond. Sagittarius are linked with travel, education, pursuit, publication, adventure, sports, physical activity. The engine of all of that is always, a motivation to seek truth, a motivation to do something bigger in life, to expand in life. And if you do not lay out your purpose very clearly, and it has to be something that goes beyond you, you would find yourself without an anchor in the new world. So this is an eclipse which will show us through a cosmic leakage. I'm sorry for not having a better word for it, but that is the star as well, which is involved with it. I'll go into that. 23 degree of Sagittarius is linked to a star which is called Ras Al Hik, and this is a star which is presented in the constellation of Ophius, which is the essentially it's represented like a snake charmer. So it's the representation of Apollo, the god Apollo, and the myth is essentially this is a sign of healing. Anybody who has 23 degree of Sagittarius usually have some skills, some gifts which are involved with healing. It may not be medical healing, though it's generally very, very strongly linked with medical healing. but it represents all type of healing. It could be medicine, it could be even the Benedict monks have this knowledge, of herbs to some extent. So Western, Eastern, natural, or just healing through words. John Lennon had that very prominent in his Venus was on it. So Venus is art. His art was to some extent like that. Abraham Lincoln's Mercury was involved in that. So there's there's a drive to be a healing agent on this degree, and new beginnings right now, new starts right now. The aim of that is normally rejuvenation, rebirth, healing. Essentially, it's the healer's head. So an idea in healing direction, thought in that direction is there, but that's not what all it is. There is attachment which is very less known of the star to essentially, I'm sorry if that does not appeal very well to you, because it's like a snake who cleans the ears of the high priestess. So there was high priestess of the temple of Apollo who could not hear the prophecy of the god because her ears were stuffed with this day-to-day conversation, the news, the noise of the moment, essentially. And she couldn't see the bigger picture. She couldn't hear the prophecy. She couldn't hear the voice of the god. So this degree is sort of, it activates that cleaning of our own cosmic ears, to give us ability to work beyond the mundane communication, to work with symbols, to work with this is very strongly linked with astrological prophecy, but overall, like just a brain wave and a thought process. And we are, to some extent, without looking for an actual communication, we are very, very deeply psychologically drawn to something which does not have a logical reason to be our path, to some extent. And this is very strongly, as I said, linked with healing, with teaching, with wounding. It's sort of like you're drawn to the driving forces to repair what was damaged. And very Neptunian qualities to both this degree, and Neptune is making an actual aspect to this. The downside of Neptune, as I've mentioned before, is always that there's an element of deception. And Neptune deception is normally when we are not being honest with ourselves, or we, even an external deception by somebody else under the influence of Neptune is because we are not being honest with ourselves. So Neptunian quality, we could be prone to overindulgence to some extent if we are not listening to ourselves and we are giving into somebody else's sales pitch here. 23 degree of Sagittarius in Samian astrology, which is symbolic. It's such a beautiful picture which holds so true to the current moment. It shows a group of immigrants acting to fulfill the requirements of entrance into a new country. And they have this zest for freedom. They have this hope. They have this period of transition that is in front of them. And that underpins this excitement when you're standing on that threshold leading to a new realm of existence. And there's still some trepidation because you have to meet certain requirements. There's a necessity to change our ways of life and action and thought and feelings. And it can feel like an ordeal, but there's a driving force which says that it's sort of fated, it's inevitable. And Rudyard said beautifully that everything that will follow beyond that threshold largely depends on how we cross this threshold and the spirit in which we cross that threshold. Because there will be certain unfamiliar and perhaps shocking experiences that are going to meet us on the way to it. And we will see that in January. Uranus, the planet of sudden changes, is going to stand still in the month of January. And that always brings out unexpected events, especially at the degree that it's happening. And we'll talk about more of that in separate video. I wrote about it in detail before as well, that Saturn and Uranus, they're going to make a square with each other. Mars, Uranus are going to meet each other right on 20th of June, on 20th of January. It's a very, very, very volatile aspect. 5 planets will be making a hard aspect with Uranus. When that happens, usually they are physically violent events, volatile events that happen. And unfortunately, these aspects interact directly with the chart of United States. So we are looking at a very different, very difficult, if I may say, it's not starting without trepidation is what I'm trying to say. From the environment in which you're operating, you're not, it's like the children who were born this year. It's like being brought into a world which is going through rebirth, essentially. So the idea that you're going to bring in, it's not coming in a very easy time, but at the same time, sometimes that idea would not come if it was not this time. So we're sort of breaking the mental shackles that allow us to accept, to move away from an old situation, which whether this event had happened or not, you wanted to get out of anyways, because you knew you could be more if you move beyond it. And you sort of are grabbing your chance, like I have been an immigrant most of my life, and it's like when you move to a new situation, there's a sense of this possibility and unbounded possibility, because you don't know the details of it. And sometimes that's the whole fun of exploring, instead of trying to find all the answers right at the onset. Because in many of these situations, it's not about getting there. It's normally about what you become on the way to it, right? So there's excitement about who you're about to become as you go after that purpose, as you go after that goal. And you're setting out in life to accomplish something. There's a goal in your mind. And in a positive manifestation, there is a sense of gratitude as well to God or to higher purpose, and to some extent to the people who are coming with you. And we feel this freedom of expression, of living, of having some level of, if I may say, control over our existence to some extent, that we can change the direction of our life. We can exercise some freedom of how we use our energy by doing this. Negative manifestation, busting loose. It's like flaunting the freedom of expression in outrageous ways. There's always a lower frequency at which somebody could operate, and we'll see some of that. But Sagittarius eclipse or any eclipse does not bring out what is not already present within us. It will just overstimulate what already existed. So the next 1 to 4 weeks, which is when this eclipse will pan out, we can see some mass movements, even riots to some extent, because there's a war, war mentality. Sagittarius needs to, it's as an archetype, it's represented on a horse going for an archer going for a goal, right? And there is a vision for a better world, but it will come no matter what is needed to get there. So there will be a little bit of fight on views. You can even, because the aspects right now are like that, there could be some amount of expectation of war or invasion as well, which might happen. Ideologically, Sagittarius eclipse is linked with firearms, with international relationships. But at the same time, it's a pioneering, it's a new discovery, new fuels, new way of managing international relationships. There's a new way of travel, new way of sharing information with each other. But on the news, as the news cycle goes, we'll see over the top activity for sure. But in personal situations, we have the choice to exercise the yang, the fire, the mutability angle of Sagittarius, and a new start in a way which gives our life more meaning. That is what Sagittarius eclipse normally does. It gives us a purpose, it gives us a meaning, it gives us the drive to go after a meaning, it gives us the pleasure in the process of trying to get there and enjoy this adventure of encountering what is new, and gives us the ability to release what was old and not serving us. If you want to look at history of this eclipse, because eclipses, they have a cycle to it, so it has happened in the past. Everything is not the same, but you can look at your personal situation to see. This eclipse last happened on 14th of December 2001, with the same degree was evoked per the Metonic cycle. So you can see 14th of December 2001. And the events between December to March 2002 sort of will happen in an accelerated way right now, because at that time the activation of the eclipse was after the eclipse has happened. In this case, the eclipse is already active. It's like live and ready to go. So in December 2001 to March 2002 is sort of we're in a process. Like, I'll give you an example. I was changing my direction at that time by pursuing a different kind of course. So I changed my specialty, or I changed my post-graduation at that time. And there was a second level of exam which was involved around February or March of 2002. So between December to March 2002, I had to go through another hoop. This is like where the examination is on the same day this time. So there is not a whole lot of time in the manifestation. It happens very quickly within 1 to 4 weeks. Not everybody would feel it in the same way, because especially if 23 degree of Sagittarius is somewhere prominent in your chart and it's making a contact with one of your personal planets, that would have a very deeper impact on you. Apart from December 2001 to March of 2002, you could also look at May and June of 2011. That's when the opposite happened, which is like something new might have come into your life. Some new purpose, some new direction, some new aim or goal came into your life around May or June of 2011. Something manifested for you in 2011, which became sort of your purpose. And now you might be releasing that and moving to something new. Like you have outgrown it to some extent, and you'll to some extent detach from it, and something old from that time could come up to be handled as well, for a closure, for a release, to sort of understand the meaning of why something happened when it happened at the time for you. And this, as I said, the process is close to 3 to 6 months long, but immediate impact, especially the communication around that, would come within a week to 4 weeks to some extent, because Mercury is a key participant in this eclipse. And then you have Sun and Mercury also conjunct to each other on 19th of December, and that's usually a superior conjunction when the seeds are sort of sown, something, completion of something happens, and the next 40 plus days from now you sort of are looking at completion of action. Something is coming full circle. There's a maturity which is happening of something that is just an idea right now, and you'll move forward in a very, very expansive way from it. The 21st of December, Jupiter Saturn conjunction, it will open our minds to a new direction, essentially a new way of being, and this will have economic underpinning. We'll see great economic impact of what's about to happen on 21st of December, and it will physically manifest, which will sort of help you carve that way and decide that path as well to some extent. So let this information reveal itself to you. Find that loss of that misstep that we don't know what we were missing. Let that come to you as a part of this eclipse, and move forward in full faith in the new direction that you're looking at this time. There will be certain traditional structural conflicts which will come up, because Mars and Pluto are going to make a square, the last square with each other on 23rd of December. So there could be somebody either externally, this is normally an internal power struggle with ourselves. It's like when you're moving towards something pioneering and your old comfort zone gives you power to some extent and it holds you back. It is like a power struggle within yourself, which you'll probably face around 23rd of December. It could be as a result of discussion with somebody or with an authority figure or something. And that's again a trigger point, 23rd of December, when Mars and Pluto square happen. First back in, this is the third time Mars and Pluto are conflicting with each other. The first square happened on 24th of August. That was the George Floyd event that happened, and the Black Lives Matters, an unfortunate incident of George Floyd essentially happened in the first square, and then the second happened on 9th of October. So something volatile possibly around 23rd of December. But this is the third square. Third square usually is the answer. So there's an openness to influx of new energy, and the power struggle or the temper or the resistance within finally gives way to a new path essentially. There's a total commitment to a transient goal, a new goal essentially, to move forward from the current situation, which will become visible post the solstice of 21st of December. So that's what I had for you. Hope this helped in some ways. I do believe that this was a year which, of course, from physical reality perspective, changed quite a lot for us. But as we were expecting, when something like that happened, and when a year like this happens, there are a lot of superficial things from our life which are shaken off and taken away to some extent. I do think that we will move from this historical year without a lot of baggage as well. We are moving with a lot of, I'm sure for many of you, and I have a lot of love and sympathy for the things that have happened to many, many people this year. I think beyond that, we are moving with less baggage to some extent. And Sagittarius South North Eclipse is about releasing an old baggage. When we move with like a new mind, where a new moon in the house of higher mind is like a higher mind is born, a higher thought process is born, a new way of looking at reality is born at this stage. So let's look forward to that and move with a little bit more faith together. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video.